Imagine a man, 1 minute, he's called a terrorist, staring down the death penalty. Then, almost 3 decades later, he walks out of prison and leads his country to freedom. This isn't some movie script. This is the real-life story of Nelson Mandela, a man who proved to the world that even the tightest grip of oppression can be broken. Nelson Mandela's life shows us what the human spirit can truly endure, even when things seem impossible. Think about his path, a fiery young activist who co-founded the armed wing of the African National Congress, then 27 years locked away in brutal prisons, and finally, his ultimate triumph, guiding South Africa out of the darkness of apartheid and into the light of democracy. It's a story that still inspires millions. This is the story of the relentless fight for freedom, a fight that didn't just change a nation, but gave hope to the entire world. Born Rolihlahla Mandela in a small village, his future was anything but set in stone. It was his move to Johannesburg in the 1940s that threw him right into the middle of a gathering storm. Seeing firsthand the daily injustice and racial discrimination that was just a part of life in South Africa, something sparked in Mandela. He joined the African National Congress, ANC, but quickly got fed up with their cautious ways. Along with friends like Oliver Tambo and Walter Sisulu, he helped start the ANC Youth League, ANCYL, in 1944. This wasn't just some youth club, it was a demand for a bolder, more radical fight against the policies that were crushing the dreams of black South Africans. Then, in 1948, things got much, much worse. The Afrikaner Nationalist Party took power and made apartheid official, a brutal, legal system of racial separation and white minority rule. For Mandela and the ANCYL, this was like a declaration of war on their very right to exist. He was a key player in shaping the ANC's new program of action, which meant boycotts, strikes, civil disobedience, and basically refusing to cooperate with the government. Mandela stepped up to lead the 1952 Defiance Campaign, a nationwide movement of non-violent resistance against unfair laws. Not surprisingly, this made him a constant target for the government, leading to arrests and restrictions on where he could go and what he could do. As the apartheid government tightened its grip with even harsher laws and violent crackdowns, the ANC, and Mandela especially, faced a tough choice. The Sharpeville massacre in 1960, where police shot and killed 69 peaceful protesters, was a brutal wake-up call. It destroyed any last hope that peaceful protest alone could change things. So, in 1961, completely disillusioned with purely peaceful methods against such state brutality, Mandela co-founded Umkhonto we Sizwe, Spear of the Nation, the ANC's armed wing. It was a controversial move, and a big step up in the fight. At first, MK focused on sabotaging government buildings and infrastructure, trying to pressure the regime without taking lives. Mandela's leadership was clear to everyone. He even traveled abroad in secret to rally international support and find military training for MK members. But the more he stood out, the bigger a target he became. In August 1962, not long after he got back to South Africa, Nelson Mandela was arrested. First, they sentenced him for illegally leaving the country and encouraging strikes. But later, while he was already in jail for that, he and his comrades were hit with much more serious charges, including sabotage, in what became the infamous Rivonia trial. At the Rivonia trial in 1964, with a death penalty hanging over him, Mandela gave his famous speech from the dock. He ended it with words that would inspire people all over the globe. I have fought against white domination, and I have fought against black domination. I have cherished the ideal of a democratic and free society in which all persons will live together in harmony and with equal opportunities. It is an ideal for which I hope to live for and to see realized. But if it needs be, it is an ideal for which I am prepared to die. He and the others on trial were spared death, but got life in prison. The notorious Robben Island, a harsh maximum security prison just off the coast of Cape Town, became Mandela's world for the next 18 years. The conditions were horrific, designed to crush the spirits of political prisoners. He was stuck in a tiny, damp concrete cell. His days were spent doing hard labor in a lime quarry, where the bright glare and dust permanently damaged his eyesight. Contact with the outside world was almost non-existent. As a Class D prisoner, the lowest grade, he was allowed only one visit and one heavily censored letter every 6 months. The government tried to make people forget him, banning his picture and his words. But even in that grim place, Mandela's leadership just grew stronger. He became a rock for the other political prisoners, encouraging resilience and defiance. They started what they called the University of Robben Island, where prisoners taught each other everything from literature and history to political ideas, turning the prison into a school of resistance. Mandela himself learned Afrikaans, the language of his jailers, because he believed understanding them was crucial for any future dialogue. He led hunger strikes and took part in countless small acts of defiance to demand better conditions and to be treated with dignity, seeing all of this as part of the larger fight against apartheid. Those years came at a huge personal cost. He was cut off from his wife and children, knowing they were suffering under the regime while he was locked away. But his determination never broke. He famously turned down offers of conditional release that would have meant giving up the armed struggle or recognizing the so-called homelands. Around the world, his reputation grew, and Free Nelson Mandela became the rallying cry for the anti-apartheid movement. After Robben Island, Mandela was moved to Pollsmoor prison and then to Victor Verster prison. It was in these later years, still a prisoner, that quiet, secret talks began with members of the apartheid government, laying the groundwork for a future few could have imagined back then. On February 11, 1990, after 27 long, hard years, Nelson Mandela walked out of Victor Verster prison a free man. The world watched, absolutely gripped, as the man who'd become a global symbol against oppression emerged, his fist raised, not in bitterness, but with a message of hope and reconciliation. His release wasn't the end of the struggle, though. It was the start of its most dangerous and critical part, moving South Africa from apartheid to a democracy for all races. The road ahead was incredibly risky. South Africa was on the edge of civil war, with so much fear, anger, and suspicion on every side. Mandela, now the president of the ANC, was absolutely key in navigating these dangerous times. He entered into complicated, often very tense, negotiations with President F.W. de Klerk's government. These talks, which have been extensively documented, took immense courage, brilliant strategy, and a deep, deep commitment to peace. Mandela's leadership was what made the difference. He had the moral authority to convince his own supporters to accept compromise and to reassure white South Africans that they also had a future in the new country. His approach, time and time again, was about reconciliation, not revenge. Despite the decades of suffering he and his people went through, he preached forgiveness and understanding. This wasn't weakness, it was an incredible act of strength and wisdom, knowing that a shared future couldn't be built on seeking revenge. He worked to bring together a deeply divided nation, famously using the 1995 Rugby World Cup, a sport once tied to white Afrikaner identity, as a way to build national unity. Those negotiations eventually led to South Africa's first ever democratic elections for all races on April 27, 1994. The ANC won by a landslide, and Nelson Mandela became the first black president of a free South Africa. His presidency was all about taking down the last structures of apartheid, building democratic institutions, and bringing the nation together. A huge part of this was creating the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. This was a revolutionary idea to deal with the terrible human rights abuses of the past by offering amnesty for truth, aiming for healing instead of never-ending blame. Mandela served one term as president, stepping down in 1999, just as he'd promised, staying true to democratic principles. His leadership during this make-or-break period transformed him from a freedom fighter and political prisoner into a global icon of peace, reconciliation, and the amazing power of the human spirit to overcome even the deepest divisions. His life became a symbol not just for South Africa, but for oppressed people everywhere, showing that even the longest, darkest nights can lead to a new dawn of freedom and justice. Nelson Mandela's life was an incredible journey. It covered the fire of his youth as a radical activist, the unbelievable endurance he showed through nearly 3 decades in prison, and the visionary leadership that pulled a nation back from the brink of apartheid into the hope of a true multiracial democracy. Every part of his story, from co-founding Umkhonto we Sizwe to his unwavering strength on Robben Island, and finally, to his wise leadership as president, built the legacy of a man whose name means the fight for freedom. He is, and always will be, a powerful symbol of fighting back against oppression, of the strength found in reconciliation, and of the unshakable hope for a fairer, more just world. His fight for freedom wasn't just for South Africa, it was for all of us. Nelson Mandela's journey, from a young radical to a respected global leader, teaches us so much about courage, resilience, and fighting for what's right. What part of his struggle for freedom hits home the most for you? Let us know in the comments below. And if you believe stories like these can inspire real change, please subscribe to our channel and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next documentary.